Now let's start talking about what it is that you're actually selling and get into the stuff around positioning and presenting your offer. In this unit, I really want to tap into the idea of price and value. Really get your head in the right space about what you're asking for from people. We're also going to talk about sort of the change that you're putting people through with your offer and what your big idea is going to look like. We're going to look into what your offer needs to be, how to position against the competition, and really giving yourself an opportunity to get more customers to buy what you have. But the first thing I want to touch on is sort of this weird relationship that we have with money, that people have with trying to get money from other people. And we get into that whole salesy feeling. But if you think about it for a second, back in the beginning of time, it was really quite simple. If I had something you wanted and you had something that I wanted, we would simply just trade. That was called direct exchange. So if you had a canoe and I had a bear fur, we would just trade. And as long as we both felt that that was equal value, that was an easy decision. But as we started to evolve, we invented this crazy thing called currency. And currency represented this indirect exchange. And it's still the same thing, is that, now maybe you don't have something that I want, but you have something that I want which represents things that I can get. And that's what all money is. And since the beginning of time, since the currency was invented, people have now fought, had wars, and created all of this mystique surrounding money. So what I want to hope to do with you in this unit a little bit is just sort of disassociate you with money. And I've got lots of clients that I work with, and when we stop thinking about money, money actually starts coming. So that's the real cool part. And I'm going to give you a little psychology tip here. Is there's a concept called money priming. And just give you an idea of priming is really, all it is that whatever's happening to you right now, and the way that you think and behave, something previously has influenced what you're thinking and how you're behaving. And that's called priming. And so in the book, Thinking Fast and Slow, they referenced a couple psychology experiments they did. And what they did is they primed people with money. So what they did is they had these little subconscious, subtle cues about money, maybe a screensaver mentioned in a conversation about profit or cash flow. And the screensaver had maybe a picture of a bag of money on it or something like that, really subtle things. And then they had the participants do some activities. And the first activity they had them do was they said, go in this room and you're going to fill out these forms. And so they would be filling out these forms at these tables, and somebody in the room would walk around and they actually dropped some pencils. And the people that were primed with money were less likely to help. They picked up half as many pencils as the people that weren't primed with money. The other group they did a study with is they put them in this room and said, okay, you're going to have a conversation with somebody else, and here's 2 chairs. So go set these up and have a dialogue with this person. And so they would go sit these chairs down, and somebody would come in and have a conversation. The people that were primed with money, get this, they would put those chairs on average 118 centimeters apart. And the ones that weren't primed with money, they were putting them 80 centimeters apart. So the two things that really stick out in these studies and all these other studies we think about with money priming is that when we are subconsciously thinking about money, we are less likely to help others, and we create these subconscious barriers. And what I always call it is sales breath. And we know what it's like when we're out and somebody's selling to us and they give us that sales breath. It feels weird. And that's why when we talk about not being salesy, this is what we're trying to avoid. And so the sales breath is, I want something from you. But what I want you to think about is, rather than what am I going to get from them, you're thinking about this value exchange. So I want you to think value. Instead of what do you want from your customer, think about what you're going to give them in exchange for the money. What value in every step of your process. When we get into selling in stages, that'll make more sense on how we exchange value. But that's what I want you to think about. Everything that you do with everybody you work with, all your customers, your vendors, suppliers, even your staff, is what value are you bringing to the table for them. And so this is what we want to do, is just disassociate ourselves from money. Stop giving it all this crazy power that it doesn't need to have. It's still valuable. We need it to run our business, but it doesn't have to have the power to make us have to be weird. I hope that makes sense. So let's get into your offer. Really, the big question I'll have is, what's your big idea? And the big idea is for you, think about what's the weight of your customer's problem. What's on their mind? What's going on in their world that they have problems with? And then start to think about, what's it worth for them to actually solve that problem in terms of time, money, resources, maybe sanity, whatever you're offering, product or service. You have to have a big idea that your customer wants to buy from you. Then you want to think is what's the one thing that you can uniquely do for them that's going to make this impact, that can help them solve this problem. And I always call it your hammer, because I remember years ago I heard this story of, say, a photocopier repairman would come in and the people were just freaking out because the photocopier hadn't been working for a while and business was stalling. And so he came in and he listened to the machine, and he touched around, and he played around, he felt, and he said, and he grabbed his hammer and he hit it in one spot and everything started working. And then he gave him a bill for $5,000. This is how the story goes. And so the manager said, well, I paid you $5,000 to just hit that with a hammer? And he said, no, you pay me $5,000 to know where to hit it with a hammer. And that's what I want you to think about your business. What's your hammer? What's that spot that you can hit on your customer's world that solves that problem? The thing that you can do uniquely that gives them a big impact. And the big question here is, what's going to get you that aha? For them to go, I wasn't thinking of it that way. And that's where you want to start. We've done some work on segmenting in the last section to understand our customers. You should have a better idea of where they're at. So before you start to sell them something, is your offer creating a big idea and creating some transformation in their life? And that's what we want to look at. In transformation, we got to show the contrast. How are we creating this change for them? How do we create a change in reality? The difference between who they are now and who they're going to become. And when we get into the concepts on storytelling, this is how you paint that picture. This is how you actually stretch that out and reduce the resistance. Because what you're doing is showing, here's where we are now and here's where we could be. And you need to sort of map that out. Then you look at the before and after. Not just the change itself, but what's the business look like now? What's the business look like then? And can you clearly show them the contrast between these 2 points? And lastly, can you show them the gain as well as the magnitude of that change, and of course quantify that value? If you can't actually show them what that change looks like, you're going to have a hard time associating value to your offer, and of course then be able to get money from them. But if you can show these changes, if you can show how the change in their current reality moves them to a new reality by leveraging the time that they're spending with you and your offer and your service, they start to go, could I do this on my own, or am I better served to invest in working with this person or buying this product? And I hope that's making sense, because that's really all we're doing. When we're presenting an offer, we're creating change for somebody. That's what they're looking for. And I love, there's a wonderful book that I love, and I just love this picture, so I'm going to leave it on for a couple seconds. But anytime that you're positioning your offer, there's 3 key things that we're going to talk about. And one of the books I love, I stalled a little bit so you could watch this pug just staring at this cookie. This one book is Insight Selling. It's one of my favorite books. It's a newer one, and really talking about how to create insights with the things that you're doing, how to position yourself differently than your competitors, how to be able to bring something to the table that adds absolute value to the dialogue rather than just thinking about the relationship you're building. And in this book, they talk about 3 things that your offer has to have, which I love. Is 1, your offer has to resonate. It has to tap in emotionally and get the attention of your buyer. They have to go, that's really interesting. That affects me. They don't have to get emotional and be excited and crying and yelling, but emotionally meaning that they have an associative context with that. So they go, I can feel that is something that would work for me, and this would actually create a change for me, and I can see the difference between the current and the future reality. So the first thing it has to do, it has to resonate. It has to somehow attached to them. And when we talked about how the brain works, this makes sense. The second one, it has to differentiate. And it has to differentiate by them saying, if I buy it from you or buy it from somebody else, why is it different? So your offer has to show that difference. And lastly, it has to substantiate. And by substantiate, mean that the risk is believable, that they feel that they can do this, that they can actually see how they're going to accomplish all of the steps along that change path. And really, how we then create this is one answer. It's you. You are the key differentiator. You are the one that creates the resonation, and you're the one that helps them substantiate it by asking your questions, by building this conversation plan that we're talking about in the next unit, by being able to get inside your customers' heads, sharing the right insights, and creating this in your offer. And if these three things aren't in place, you're probably going to have a disconnect. So if, for example, if it doesn't resonate, but it differentiates and substantiates, they're going to say, wow, you're really good, and I believe we could do that. However, I don't think it's for me, right? If it resonates and substantiates, but doesn't differentiate, they're going to say, wow, this is really exciting. I believe we can do it, and I'm going to shop around and see if there are other options, okay? And if it resonates, differentiates, but doesn't substantiate, they're going to go, this is really cool. This is an interesting thing. I can see why you're great at this, but I don't know if it's for us. I don't know if I could actually do this. Maybe it's for other people. So keep those three things in mind. You write down one thing, keep those three things in mind. And does your offer do those three things? Now, when I looked at, I decided to write a bunch of text on this for you because I really wanted to talk about competition. A lot of people work hard to position themselves against their competitors, and what I want you to think about is that don't just try to show why you're different and how you stack up against others. What I want you to do is change the game, change the playing field, create this scenario where you become the best choice, and eliminate anybody else from the discussion. So what you're doing is you're getting those buyers to actually see the whole way the landscape is played differently. So in your conversation, in your dialogue, when you position their offer, they start to go, well, I wasn't thinking of it like that. And now they can see why you're the best choice for the new conversation. I hope that makes sense. I got a great email from, I mentioned Oren Klaff on Pitch Anything, and I subscribed to his email list. And he was talking about competition. So I thought I'd add a couple of things he talked about is examples of how two companies position themselves against competitors right at the outset, so they created a new playing field. The first one is DeWalt, and so this is what he wrote about is for professionals. This is their new branding statement. They struggled with being sort of lost in the home appliance world, and so what they did is they reframed how they're looked at for themselves and also for their competitors. So if you read this, for professionals, DeWalt is the tool brand that stands for durability. Unlike low-priced 9-volt power tools that are sold at Walmart, Target, or discount shops, our tools are sold to contractors and builders, have as much as 18 volts of power built for all-day use on commercial construction sites. Now, they've changed what it means to buy different options in this space. Now, they are the sought after for durability. So now that what they're doing is they're getting their customer to start thinking, well, are we looking for durability or are we looking for cheap? And this then helps them select themselves in and out of your process. So think about for yourself how that applies. The next one, which I really like, was on the company called Pixar, Toy Story and all these guys. So what they did is they reframed this conversation as well. For parents with young children, Pixar offers animated movies with great stories. Unlike princess movies or other remake of Snow White, our movies appeal to audiences of all ages. And by doing it that way, now when they position themselves against these other cartoons and other Disney type shows, they're saying we're doing it for a reason. That's what we're looking at. What's the reason that you're positioning your brand? What's the reason that you're not in the same group of these competitors? When somebody says, do you compete against these guys? You can say, kind of, not really. We're in a different world and here's what it looks like. And by doing this, this allows Pixar executives to pitch to television companies and say, yeah, we could do one of those sort of cookie cutter shows, one of these princess movies that probably will make you money. But if we take a risk and tap into a larger market by creating something that still applies to kids, but also appeals to a larger market, now we're not even looking at millions, we're looking at billions of dollars in sales. And that's how you shift and reframe the thinking on your competition. So what I want you to do with competition is these three things. One, determine what your competitors do, and then identify what you do that's absolutely different, and basically why you're not in competition with them, why you are unique in a market of itself. Then, in your conversations and in your offer, when you're writing this stuff down, drive home that difference without even mentioning who they are. And then when somebody says, do you compete with these guys? You can say, kind of, not really. Here's what we do. let's talk about what we do that drives our business. I hope that makes sense for you, because this is a key thing for building your offer, for building your brand. And one of the things I love to do is whatever you're offering, and it might depend on what it is that you're selling, but it's nice to give customers options. Rather than just, having one blanket price, think about, based on your segments, based on their ability to buy. Remember, we talked about lifetime value. What's the way that you can enter the market that's meaningful? And maybe option one is give them a low-cost alternative to solve an immediate problem. Especially if you don't have a relationship with them, there may be a way to enter the market. And often this is also when they come to you and say, can you do this for me? Most likely this is the problem that you're going to solve. But through your conversation, as we talk about asking questions and reframing and getting them deeper into the dialogue, we want to move them more into an option two, which is going to be what you want to position yourself as. So this would be working with you, solving problems, getting to the heart of what your offer is, and this is where you want to position most of your customers. But option three, get a little bit, take a little bit of a risk and give them a big option, almost a price that makes you uncomfortable to say. And in your dialogue, through your conversation, by giving them insights, asking the questions, you should be able to get your customer to start go, that's interesting. And you say, when I'm going to send you a proposal, here's what it's going to look like, and give them multiple options on how to work with you. Because the question they should be having is not, should I buy from you, but how should I buy from you? If you've done your job right in building the right offer for the right segment, they should have an option. Now, they may come to you and say, can you solve this problem? You say, absolutely. And through your conversation, you know that there's a deeper problem, a deeper program. There's a bigger idea you can solve them with, but still give them that first option in the proposal. They're going to look at it and say, this is good, but what if we took the next step? And then you track what percentages of people accept these. You may get, 50% of them or let's say 30% do the low cost one, 60% do the middle one, and then what's the last one? 10% do the high one. So it doesn't cost you anything to just put a crazy number out there, because some people will accept it. And the more you charge, actually the less work you end up doing. So it's good to have options so your customers start to also think, what is it like to work with you long term? And this works really well for me when I'm positioning my sales consulting services, because they start to see, hey, there's more to it. If you go back and try and upsell them or sell them more stuff after, it's treated almost like a separate sale. But if you do this at the beginning, a lot of your competitors aren't doing this. So now they start to psychological prime themselves to work with you long term, whether they make the decision at the beginning. So I hope that makes sense. Building these options, and when we get into some of the storytelling and conceptual agreement, building these contracts, I'm going to show you how to actually put this into place. The biggest thing you can do with your offer is be confident. With everything you do is really be confident. And when we talk about this value and this price and our association with money, I want you to go back into this and say, am I confident in the value that I offer? I go back, every conversation I have with a new client, I say, why you? What value do you bring? What problem do you solve? What's that thing that you do that your customers go, man, we knocked it out of the park? And so when you know that value, price is irrelevant. Price doesn't matter if you have enough value that you can see this indirect exchange for money, for services. People love to buy things. I love buying things, and sometimes I buy things that are uncomfortable price-wise to buy, but I want them. Understand, your customers want to buy from you, so be confident in your value. And if not, you need to spend some time at home and look yourself in the mirror and say, do I actually provide a good service? Have I had one customer that's happy that we've served, and can I associate a price for that? Next, be confident in your price. Before you go out and start charging somebody, make sure you can tell yourself in the mirror, that'll be $10,000 or that'll be $100,000 or whatever, or $10, whatever you're selling, be able to convince yourself that you believe in it. I know for years when I was selling, we would have one product that the price kept raising on us, $5,000 here, another $2,000 here. And every time our sales teams would freak out a little bit because, that's not what we've charged before. Your customers don't know that. But if you present your price and you are a little bit uncomfortable and you're a little bit not confident, they'll feel it. If they feel that you're not confident, they're not going to be confident in the price. So whatever you're charging, make sure you believe that it's what it should be. And lastly, be confident in yourself. right? When we get into the mindset stuff, this will make sense. I really want you to think about, when I go into this, I need to be excited. I need to know that I give crazy amount of value, that the price makes sense, that people like buying this stuff, and that I'm the right person to buy from, and that we actually have something cool on our hands. And by doing that, we go back to the initial conversation about money, is just get super excited to help people buy from you. That's it. If you go in knowing that somehow your offer can help them, and whether they buy from you or not doesn't matter, but if you go in excited about all this stuff, sales become so much easier. When you forget about money, the association with money, sales become easier, more money comes your way. You gotta trust me, I've worked with tons of people, and when we shift this thinking, it's so much more fun. So now, what I want you to do is, in the homework for this one, is write out that impact. Write down for yourself, what is that thing that we do that really makes customers go, yeah, thank you so much. And if you haven't had customers yet, then think about what they're going to feel. Maybe do some surveys and say, what would be the ultimate impact we could make for them? I want you to decide why you are the best choice, why the world that you exist in is completely different than the world of your competitors, and how there's actually no competition for the thing that you do. And I'd like you to maybe do a couple different pricing and package options. And if you have a very structured pricing model already, that's okay. I want you to think about how you're going to position your offers for people, how you can give them different options to be able to enter into the process with you. So I hope that helps you out. The next section that we're going to go into is actually the whole sales conversation. We're going to show you how and when, where you position this, and the language you use, the insights, the questions. So I'm going to see you on the next unit.